Welcome to Experience Vistage. I'm Nicole Lindley. In my 25 years of corporate leadership experience, one important lesson I've learned is that who you surround yourself with matters. Over the past decade, I have had the honor to lead peer groups where I bring non-competing business leaders together to step away from the day-to-day to work on their business. In addition to taking the time to do this, we do so in a confidential, facilitated environment where peers are able to share their successes, overcome challenges, and push through roadblocks. Today, you'll gain insight into the power of Vistage Peer Groups, our proven process, and why you should consider becoming a Vistage member for your own growth, success, and peace of mind. First, you'll get a sample of the time that we spend as a peer group learning, growing, and keeping a pulse on the things that are impacting your business. Vistage has a vast network of nationally recognized speakers, and today you'll hear from one of the best. AmyK will be talking about the one critical skill that has the power to close multi-million-dollar deals, save marriages, advance careers, and align individuals to their best lives. And that is finding just the right words to communicate well, particularly in crucial conversations. Then I'll share a brief overview of what Vistage is all about, why leaders join our peer groups, how our process works, and what your commitments are in order to be a part of our community. And then we'll wrap up with perspectives from several of my members and the value that they gain from being a part of Vistage. So let's get started. I'm excited to introduce AmyK Hutchins. AmyK is an international award-winning speaker, Amazon #1 best-selling author, and has worked with leaders for over 20 years as a coach and consultant. She introduces leaders and go-getters to the power of taking life one conversation at a time. Her magical phrases and communication techniques used around the globe have helped close multi-million-dollar deals, save marriages, advance careers, heal family dynamics, and align individuals with their right and best lives. Today, AmyK will share practical tools that will inspire and equip you to communicate confidently. She'll help you navigate your toughest conversations without saying something you regret or giving away your power. AmyK, welcome to this Experience Vistage event.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So can we start by hearing a little bit more about you and your journey? What brought you to this point in life? Give us a little bit of background.
Well, when I was 2 days old, no, we won't go back that far. I'm a teacher through and through, and I always lead with that because I was playing imaginary school, at 4, 5, and 6 years of age, and then I became an elementary school teacher. Then I became an elementary school teacher trainer, and then a sales trainer. Corporate, I was always involved on the sales and education side, and so here I am with my own company now. We're celebrating 22 years on December 11th, but I'm still a teacher through and through. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you.
And tell us a little bit, in my getting to know you and seeing you speak, you are very confident and love getting out there on the stage, but I don't think that was always the case from what I understand from
you understand correctly. So Nicole, I'm a big believer that where your greatest pain is where your greatest gift is, if you're willing to see it and use it that way to serve and give back. And so I was always very confident in communicating with adults when I was little, but I was not confident communicating with my peers, standing up for myself, using my voice. And I joke, it's kind of, I say this and it comes off flippantly, but I don't mean it. We were all given this voice box. Today, mine's a little raspy because I'm getting over a cold, but we were given a voice box and it didn't come with instructions. And so, I can still go on the internets today and I can look up how to speak and yes, how to give a public presentation, how to put a deck together. But nobody ever sits down and says, what does communication look like in a healthy, loving, intimate relationship? What does good communication look like when you're talking to an executive who's underperforming, or you're talking in a negotiation with mergers and acquisitions, or you're trying to have some of those really tough conversations with people about life in general, whether it's at home or at work. And so I just realized that every time I faltered, and then I figured out how to have that conversation on Monday morning, that Monday morning quarterbacking, I was like, everybody needs this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I understand that you were a Vistage member for 8 years, and you have been speaking for Vistage for over 22 years. So tell me a little bit about your relationship with Vistage and what you value about that.
Well, I joke, I bleed teal, but I love Vistage. And I say this honestly, because I am a speaker and I've been a speaker for a very long time. As a member, I love the speakers. The speakers were a nice thing to have. They were a bonus. And so, I'm genuine when I say this. As a member, though, I loved the executive session the most. Mm-hmm. I'm intellectually curious. I love to solve problems. I teach critical thinking. And so one of the things that always to me was like the biggest bang for the buck was when this peer advisory group of really diverse perspective, diverse experience sat around at the table and we problem solved for each other. Yeah. And just to have that kind of camaraderie and intelligence moving your business forward faster, that was worth its weight in gold to me. So yes, as a speaker, I'm trying to always add value, but as a member, I can tell you, speakers are a bonus. It's the executive session that rocks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so powerful having those sounding boards and that trusting place, right? That you can really let your guard down, that you can talk about stuff confidently, but vulnerably as well.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Thanks for sharing that. So let's dig in and talk a little bit about one of your areas of expertise, and that is communicating to connect. What I'd love to start off with is having you talk a little bit about when someone finds themselves in a conversation where there is friction and they need to bring it down, they need to de-escalate the tension. What are some approaches, some phrases that you recommend in this particular situation?
Well, I think that all of us have heard, we need empathy. We need to lead with empathy. And empathy's now gotten a little bit of that buzzword kind of mentality. And so I'd like to just take a step back and talk about something that I'm near and dear to my heart, which is empathic intelligence. And that is that you as the leader are listening in such a way that you're going to respond sensitively and perceptively. And that onus is on you. So if you're really going to respond in a situation, like you say, that has friction, you've got to use what I call magical phrases. I'm like the queen of magical phrases. I've been collecting them. I have hundreds of them. But for today, I'll give you a couple. The first one that I love when there's friction is to take a step back and find a point of agreement. So whether it's political, whether it's religious-based, whether it's family situations, whether it's tension at work, to just step back and say, okay, might we agree? And then fill it in with something where there's agreement on. So it's like, well, might we agree that we both want what's best for the children? Or might we agree that, like our parents are best with like 3 days or less, right? Or might we agree that we want what's best for our culture or our client or the prospect, right? So it's that might we agree, like, let's just step back a second. And I'm not going to get into specifics on this one, but it works very well for politics. It works very well for dicey issues as well. And so it's great for the holidays. But one of the things that I think that's also important is that a lot of friction is based on opinion. And so I like to turn the conversation away from opinion to experience. And so I will often use a magical phrase of, tell me the experiences that have led you to this thought. Tell me your experience that got you to this perspective. Or what have you experienced in the past that brings you to this perspective or this, take on it today? But notice what I'm doing is I'm not saying, why do you think that? Like, I'm not diving deeper into the opinion. I'm backing up for experience.
Yeah. I was reading something that talked about how to really try to avoid, right, the friction and something getting to the point of escalation. And one of the things that you've talked about is avoiding absolutes.
Yeah.
In the way that you word things. And an example that I saw was, I think along the lines of, There's a part of me that is feeling frustrated, as an example, and you're smiling. So talk a little, I'm such a good learner.
You're such a great learner. I love it. Oh, I love it.
So talk a little bit about that, because I think it ties into this. It might not be, again, de-escalating, but maybe how to avoid a conversation getting to the point of friction.
Well, you nailed it, Nicole. I think that that's a part of it is, starting with connection rather than the power play. Like so many of us show up for, this conversation that we want to have. We know it's going to be difficult. We know it could be angst laden. And most people then start with, well, I'm going to be blustery, right? I'm going to come in hard and tough and whatever. And I always say lead with a soft front and a hard back, meaning I can connect with you. I can be empathic, and then I can have firm values, firm boundaries, expectations. But if you lean in and you're too tough, and then you have a soft spine, you're a pushover. So what you want to do is you want to come in, and one of the greatest ways to connect and bring the tension way down is to not talk in absolutes. Because a lot of us here, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm disappointed. And that sounds like a 100%, oh, AmyK's, pissed off. Yeah. If I say a part of me is concerned, a part of me is frustrated, a part of me is angry, then I've left all this other wiggle room for other parts of me to still be accepting, affirming, respecting in our personal relationships, loving. And so what I often see is the tension de-escalate really quickly when we stop talking in absolutes and we start saying like, hey, a part of me is concerned. That's a great magical phrase. Another one is to ask where the emotional state is of the other person and be willing to be wrong, because there's no harm in being wrong. So like if I said to you today, Nicole, hey, Nicole, you sound frustrated. Am I hearing you accurately? Are you frustrated? So if we just role played and I said, are you frustrated? Nicole, you can tell me whether you're frustrated or not.
No, I'm not frustrated. I'm just trying to understand.
See, now that's brilliant, because what happened is I'm willing to be wrong, but because I asked you, it makes it safe for me to be wrong. And then you automatically correct me. And now I know exactly where you're at. Oh, you're just trying to understand. Well, then let me help you understand. Let me explain a little bit more about where I'm coming from. If you had just said, no, I'm not frustrated, and you hadn't answered what you're actually feeling, then I would go one step further and I'd say, well, tell me more about what it is that you're actually feeling. Help me understand. And then from there, notice I'm leaning in, I'm connecting. I can still have a hard back and say, okay, all of that makes sense. And we still have deadlines, or we still need to get this out the door, or we still need to make this work. But at least I'm leading with empathy and connection first.
Right, right. So we've all had to deal with difficult individuals and people who don't hold themselves accountable, maybe are defensive. When folks find themselves in a situation with someone that I've just described, what are some suggestions or responses that you suggest then?
Well, I don't think any of us have made it to age 20 without dealing with a difficult person. But I think there's a couple things that you can do. And one is, first of all, to really think about the fact that what is in your control. So often, people will make excuses, right? So they'll do this is out of my control, blah, blah, blah. So I will often look at them and I'll say, okay, but what is within your control? And I'll start there. I'll hold them right there, spade to spade. The other thing that I think that is really cool is that a lot of times when we talk about accountability, we look at it and we define it as a lame blame game. And it's not. It's really about accepting the assignment for the care and management of X, fill in the blank. So I'll often look at a person and I'll say, we're responsible for this. We're accountable to this, which means that you and I agreed that we were going to accept the assignment for the care and management. So I'm not interested in pointing fingers and figuring out who's to blame. I'm more interested in saying, what can we do to help you accept the assignment for the care and the management of this project, this situation, this individual? But it really changes the framework to, I'm not looking to get you in trouble. I'm looking to make you more responsive in your behaviors to make this work. And it's a very strong psychological shift.
I was just sitting here thinking about one of my members in one of our group sessions shared an approach that she uses often when she's in a difficult conversation, maybe with someone who she feels is defensive or has a tendency to be, who shuts down, is she will ask their permission to give them feedback or to share her perspective or to share, her observations. And I thought that was interesting and probably prevents some of the defensiveness, lets them feel as though they're somewhat in control of the conversation as well. And so maybe you can add that one to your magical phrases is, do I have permission to give you some feedback, or can I share some feedback with you? And I've tried that a few times, and it seems to be nice, seems to work.
Yeah, well, I think it's a gracious way of saying, I'd like to continue this conversation, but we have to agree that we're going to continue it together. One of my favorite magical phrases is to say, I have a story in my head, share the story, and then ask that person, is there any truth to my story? And so again, you're inviting them to correct the story and you make it less about them. So if you're worried that somebody like, hey, do I have permission? And they're like, no. Then your backup plan is, okay, well, Nicole, I appreciate that. And I'll save that feedback then. But I also want to share with you that I have a story in my head.
Yeah.
Share your story. And then I'd look at you and I'd say, so Nicole, is there any truth to my story? And it's okay if your story is wrong, again, because you're asking and you genuinely want to get to the truth of the story.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a good point. I guess there's a little bit of a risk in asking their permission. And you talk about not giving your power away. Talk to us a little bit more about that and what you mean and what that looks like.
So power is owning your state of being, owning your own energy, your own behaviors, your own emotional state, your own behaviors, everything about your presence in the world and how you want to show up and present as a human being. And so just a classic example I think that we all can relate to is, somebody barges into your office because they're upset, they're frustrated, they're that difficult person. And they're like, I have to talk to you right now. And what we do is we give our power away by like, oh, okay. When we have absolutely the agency to step back and go, okay, Nicole, you sound really upset. This deserves, you're worthy of my time and attention. I need 10 minutes to pull this together so I can focus on you. Or I need an hour to pull myself together so I can give you undivided and focused attention. That's taking your power back. Yeah. That's saying, hey, I get it. I'll focus on you, but I'm not going to do this just because you barge in. And the way that I look at it is anytime somebody's interrupting somebody else's movie, like they're in the middle of their own movie in the middle of the day, and you go in to interrupt it, you have a right to take control over your own movie and say, I'm not ready for that scene. I got to finish this scene. And that's just a good way to think about it. Yeah. And also giving your power away. I think that, what do I really want to say about that too? Giving your power away is also not letting people trigger you to such an emotional state that you stay spun up about it all day. So staying in your power also means like, hey, that was really upsetting. I need to process that. Obviously, we're human. I need to work that through my emotional system. And then I need to kind of take back my day. I need to kind of get back to owning my own energy, owning my own state of being. And those are both kind of just different ways of thinking about taking your power back.
Yeah. I love that. I need to remember that when I'm having conversations with my boys, my kids. That's when my power gets sucked away. Not literally power, but what you just said, right? Like it took over my day. So that's really good advice. Something to keep in mind.
Yeah, good.
So in my CEO peer group last month, we talked specifically about the multiple generations that are in the workforce. Is there any advice or the things that we've talked about when you think about leaders trying to navigate through effective conversations with very different generational styles, or that's what they're feeling? Is there anything that you would offer up or that you've observed that they should keep in mind as they're trying to communicate effectively with the different generations?
I think every generation brings solutions, and I think every generation brings new challenges. Yeah. And I kind of think about, if you go back to traditionalists that were always like, hey, I'm going to float below the radar. Don't talk to me. If my boss isn't talking to me, I must be doing a great job. And then the baby boomers came along and they're like, oh no, I'd like an annual performance review. And then my generation came along and was like, I don't want to find out in December that like I fumbled the ball in February. Like, can I meet with a coach monthly? And then, the next generation came along and they were like, yeah, I don't have time for this, just leave me a voicemail. And then this latest generation is like, leave me a voicemail. Who listens to voicemails? Like, text me. And now we're even like, don't text me. Like, if it's not in WhatsApp, like I'm not even going to find it. And so I laugh. The world changes and every generation brings something, but here's something that all of us can relate to. No matter how old you are, we have humanity and the humanness of our experience in common. And what I mean by that is every single person, whether they are 22 or 82, they want to feel seen, heard, and understood. And so if we can just sit down and do a better job of actively listening, if we can do a better job of asking the bigger, better, bolder questions and really connect with that person and realize that, hey, everybody's got something to contribute, then people feel less threatened by the next generation and they'll feel like they'll be more successful going forward. And so a lot of times in my generational training, Nicole, I'll say, it's not about getting used to a new generation and talking about, okay, what does X want versus what Z wants, what's a millennial wants, which is a baby boomer. I said, we can get into all that. But what I'd rather we realize is that every generation feels, hey, can I be successful in the new way with the way that the world is shifting? And is my identity being threatened? And if we can make them feel significant in their role, make them feel seen, heard, and understood, and make them feel like, hey, you're going to be successful in this new way. You've got a lot to still contribute. We can actually move everyone forward faster.
Yeah, I love that. AmyK, do you have any last words of wisdom for the leaders who are watching today?
Well, I think Nicole, that I believe that life happens one conversation at a time. Mm-hmm. And I think as leaders, we have to show up and prepare for those critical conversations. And if I'll leave you with one thing, I really believe this, that the life that you desire, the life that you really want, it's on the other side of that tough conversation.
The tough conversations that we often avoid, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So don't avoid them.
No, the cost of avoiding them is huge. And it's actually been researched. So we know that there's a huge cost, literally a financial cost. But then I'll leave you with a fact, I guess, since I'm still talking. The average leader waits 6 months to 2 years to have a tough conversation. And that is just 6 months way too long.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds crazy, but yet not. I can see it.
Yeah. Well, I joke in personal life or even at work, it's kind of like the reason that you left him or her, at 3 years down the road, you saw it in the first 90 days. The reason that you fired him or her 5 years down the road, you saw in the first 90 days.
Yeah. Well, AmyK, thank you so much for joining us. You've been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to try out some of your strategies.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was a true delight. Thanks so much. From my heart to yours. Hugs.
Bye. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed AmyK and her energy and authenticity. Vistage has been around for 60 years, and we're about CEOs stepping away from their day-to-day duties and connecting with other leaders to gain outside perspectives. As a result, they become better leaders, they make better decisions, and they deliver better results. That's why, on average, our CEO member companies grow 2.2 times faster than similar companies that are not a part of Vistage. The Vistage model is powerful and simple, with 4 main elements of membership. First, we meet once a month as a group, and during that time, we roll up our sleeves and work on your most significant issues and opportunities. These meetings are facilitated by me to ensure the right conversations happen and we find the right solutions. During these meetings, we often also bring in subject matter experts on topics that the group has expressed interest in. In addition, each month, you and I will have a one-on-one coaching session for 60 to 90 minutes, and you will also have access to our global Vistage community, an online portal with an extensive collection of best practices and the ability for you to connect with over 27,000 members worldwide. So let's talk about the investment required to be a part of the Vistage community. There's a time investment. Once a month, the group meets for a full day. I've described what we do in that time, but the commitment that you make is that one consistent day a month, you are meeting with the group. We also, again, will meet one-to-one virtually and in person. I typically do a blend, and those meetings are between 60 and 90 minutes. There's a financial investment to be a part of Vistage. There are monthly membership dues, and those are $16.45, and there is a one-time enrollment fee of $23.65. Vistage has done a great job of surveying our members. When we ask our Vistage members why they value being a Vistage member, we consistently hear a few things: making better decisions, gaining perspectives and the space to work on their business rather than in their business, accountability, becoming more accountable and better able to hold others accountable, growth, both personally and professionally, isolation relief, the lonely at the top syndrome, and change management, simply being able to internally and externally manage the change that is constantly happening around you as the leader of the business. But don't just take my word for it. Let's hear from several of my members.
I really hadn't heard of Vistage before I became a CEO, which really wasn't all that long ago. I mean, it was only just less than 2 years ago. Had not heard of Vistage, was really sort of interested generally in finding some good networks of CEOs to spend more time with, not really for the sake of networking, that's important, but also just to make sure that I had some more breadth to my perspective and thought processes as I tried to make decisions. And so I had known you, Nicole, from our past, and you had kind of taken this role with Vistage, and so we just connected, and you kind of helped me understand what Vistage could bring to the table for me, and maybe vice versa. And so, like a lot of things, timing matters, and the timing was really kind of perfect in terms of when you took your role and when I took mine. And so, the more I learned about it, the more it sure seemed to be kind of that networking opportunity, that opportunity to spread my wings like I hoped it would be.
Before I was really in a leadership or CEO or president role, I participated in something done by our local Chamber of Commerce, which was called Leadership Rally. And essentially that was it was a peer group, but not necessarily of leaders. And, at the end of the day, it was really three things. It was networking, of course. It was exposure to other industries that I may not have, exposure to, whether it be banking or, anything.
Yeah.
And then it was idea sharing. Right. And I really enjoyed it. It was, it was a finite amount of time, meaning it just lasted for a year, almost like on a school year type calendar. But I really liked it. I really loved the exposure and all the things I just named. And so when this opportunity was put in front of me, I figured what better way to really capitalize on that when you only have leaders in the room and people that are on my same level that I could, get advice from or even learn just, industry knowledge from them. Because what I've found in a very, very short amount of time is no matter what industry you're in, no matter how many employees you have, whether it's 10 or 110 or 1,100, we all have the same challenges. And we've probably all made a mistake that somebody else can learn from, and I'm certainly guilty of that. And I'm happy to share those that so someone else can do it a little differently and a little better. So that's really what exposed me to it. I mean, I felt like I was on Vistage Light with that leadership rally. And this really, really exceeded my expectations as far as knowing how that would be or having a good idea how it would be and how it actually is. So really great experience thus far.
I will tell you this, when I first founded the company in 2013, I was very much in survival mode and trying to make the business just stay in business and stay afloat. So those first 3 or 4 years was very much, okay, you need to make sure that you maintain this business. You need to do everything in your power to hold multiple seats to be as effective as possible. So I was sitting in the business development seat, I was sitting in the recruiter seat, operations seat, and just maintaining as best as I could. And I think about year 5 to 7 is when I realized, okay, now we need strategy, right? You cannot just continue to work in the business. You have to step back and look at where is the business going? How do you expect to grow the business, and how do you feel like it's the best way to do that? So then I started looking at multiple peer groups to figure out, okay, what can I do to increase my own development and learning and be a more effective leader and business owner and entrepreneur. And I did that with a couple of different groups that I did find some value in, but I never really I wasn't able to get around a group of individuals that really were in the knowledge sharing, into knowledge sharing and giving me some good wisdom and tools that I could actually implement into the business. And then I stumbled upon you, Nicole, and a message from you, and you described what Vistage was and what an awesome opportunity it could be for me in the stage of where I was in the company. So I immediately said yes, because I knew that I needed something outside of what I had at that moment. I joined Vistage, and it's just been an awesome opportunity for me to learn from other CEOs that are running successful businesses that are thriving, and helping me to understand how can I grow my business, and what value add I could be, and what is the specific strength and tool that I could use best to grow the business. So it's been a tremendous resource for me to come out of the survival mode and more into strategy and determining what are the best options on the table for me to move the business forward.
I bought the business 2 years ago, and I never saw myself owning a business, but the situation happened in a way that the previous owner was like, all right, Raz, I'm selling the business. I'm selling it to you. Be ready. So I was like, oh, okay. I need to be ready. So, and he was there for me, but he kind of started moving completely away, and I needed some support. And I found out about Vistage through a different group of individuals, and they really encouraged me. And I wanted to understand how the decisions are made. I wanted to find out that I'm not alone making those big decisions. And I wanted to surround myself with the group of people that they understand me, my pain and my suffering, and provide an advice to make my life easier. So that's really prompted me to join Vistage.
Value is, I don't know. I'm being the former CFO of the company, I'm sort of trained to think about ROI and value and what do you get, kind of transactionally. And I guess we, business leaders, we have to think about that stuff still. But, I think being a part of Vistage, it's going to be hard to measure the value quantitatively. I think it's more of a qualitative assessment that you have to go through, which is, am I coming back from the interactions I have, whether it be the monthly meetings with the group or the monthly meetings with the chair, in my case with you, any other social events or other opportunities we have to engage with Vistage, am I coming back from those energized? Am I coming back with new thoughts and perspectives on my business? Am I coming back with some ideas that I can share and introduce to initiatives that we have underway? And if the answer to that is consistently yes, then it's hard to say that there's not value there, And for me so far, that's definitely been the case. There are at least 2 or 3 just in this first year, at least 2 or 3 conversations I've had, speakers I've listened to, just topics that we've batted around that have absolutely introduced here at Curie. And so for me, it's easy to say, yeah, there's value to being a part of this, no question.
I'm in a little bit of a unique position, and a positively unique position, that I am transitioning into a bigger CEO role, as you know. And the person that I'm taking over for, and he's just leaving due to retirement. So it's a slow transition, and I have the benefit of, conversing and collaborating with him all the time to get advice. But not everybody has that. But even in that role that I have today, he and I may have disagreements, or I may feel strongly about something that he feels strongly about in an opposite way. And as you know, Nicole, just last month, or 3 weeks ago in our Vistage meeting, I had an issue or a challenge that I put in front of the group, and it was exactly that. The president of our bigger organization and I had differing views on something. I wanted to make sure I handled that diplomatically and professionally, and also see if my viewpoint even made sense to the bigger group. And it was, I can't tell you how helpful it was. I took the advice of the group, by the way, and I don't know if you followed up, took the advice of the group, and we pulled the plug on the plan that I wasn't comfortable with, and he was completely good with it. Loved the fact that I came to him and all that. So again, I mean, that's just that's happened time and time again at every one of our meetings. It's not always me, but it's usually somebody, has a great success story to tell. But, to kind of, that sounds a little, the answer sounds a little self-centered, but if you look at, my role is to protect. I don't own my company. I'm just in charge of it. Right. So I protect my employees and the investment that the owners have. And when you have a collaborative effort to make key decisions, that is hugely important, because, again, to kind of bring it back home, I have a luxury now of having, my bigger president in his role. I won't always have that. So, they say that it's lonely at the top, and I certainly can appreciate that. And this is absolutely a way that, you can bounce ideas off really smart people that wouldn't be there if they weren't smart people.
Absolutely. I think the biggest value add for me has been a difference in perspective. So listening to different companies who are very different than mine, but we all have similar challenges, and realizing that we can be in different industries, businesses that have been in place for 5 years and 10 years are experiencing the same challenges. And we're all in the same situation with trying to figure out what are the creative solutions to be able to solve our problems that are not just unique to higher strategies, but challenges that we're all are having. So I really value the diversity in perspective. I value the diversity in the size of organizations. I value the diversity in the amount of years of experience that my peers bring to the table. Some are newer leaders like myself. Some have been leaders for 15, 20 years plus. So I just find that extremely valuable to be in a room of individuals that are so willing to share their lessons learned, and also share how they've overcome challenges in the past that might be my current challenge.
And I gotta give kudos to you, Nicole, for assembling such a different group of individuals, the leaders. It's amazing. So my expectation going in definitely exceeded expectations. We have people from we have like the president CEOs from different industries. Regardless of what industries they come from, the problem as owners or as leaders, the essence is the same. What we deal with, it's the same. And what I'm getting out of this group is the wisdom that's shared, the experience brought. I mean, I'm one of the younger individuals in the group. That means I have so much to learn, and I have so much experience to observe from other peer individuals that is really exciting for me. I always look forward to this monthly meeting so that I can gain wisdom, learn from them, and be myself. One thing I love about the group is they are not judgmental. They appreciate your vulnerability. They appreciate you being, it's okay to be weak in front of them, and they appreciate that. And I love that. And the wisdom shared, I have been now utilizing it for the company. For example, one thing I learned from the group is transparency and communication. That's the key for the workforce. So at Science6, starting 2023, what I am doing is State of the Union. So I'll be presenting in front of my team and talk about who we are, where do we want to go, and what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses. So that kind of took that that I understood that how I need to, as a leader, I need to be transparent from meeting our peer group. So I'm really excited and very interested to be learning more from the group down the road.
Way I used to think about and still think about investments, when I was running the portfolio here and still kind of oversee that area of our business, we're always looking for what we call asymmetric return potential, where, the upside opportunity outweighs, by multiples the downside risk. And so in this case, we're kind of fortunate. We know there's a finite cost here, right? I mean, if you commit to doing this for, say, a year, just give it a try for a year, you know what that cost is, so you know your downside, and then you've got this sort of, unknown but asymmetric upside potential. And again, it's going to be hard to necessarily put it in the form of dollars and cents. But you're going to come out of that year knowing, kind of going back to what I said before, am I consistently coming back from these opportunities to engage with my network and the Vistage share? Am I consistently coming back with good information and ideas for my company? And if after a year you're saying yes to that question, then it's hard to say that you didn't have that value. And if you're not, then it's exactly what it cost you, and you move on. And I doubt that's the case for most folks, but if it is, it is, and you know what you spent.
It is a concern, and it was one of my concerns, right? I mean, none of us have enough time in the day to do what we're doing, and time management's a challenge. But so in our industry, again, I work for a specialty contractor, and one of the things we struggle with, and you hear it in our industry all the time, is what if we train this person and then they leave? What if we invest in this person in training and they leave? Well, the rebuttal that not my original thought, it's a very good one, but the rebuttal that I thought is, what if we don't train them and they stay?
Yeah.
Right. So I love that as a kind of a parallel situation. So it sounds corny or almost too cliche, but I would say you don't have time not to do this, right?
Yeah.
Because I think about it, to put it maybe in even really oversimplified terms, if I have I'm trying to decide whether I hire I'm making this up, but hire a COO or I don't hire a COO, right? Just to make up a situation. The amount of hours I lay awake and think about that and struggle with it and do a spreadsheet and interview this and do an employee feedback here and a peer network here, the amount of time I spent doing that, I probably could have solved it in 1 hour at a Vistage meeting. I mean, just being honest with you, right? And it's not about how quickly it got done, it's the fact that it got done correctly. My peers in that meeting will say, here's what I think you should do. Here's why I think you should do it. Don't do this, by the way, because I've done it and it was a mistake, but you really need to do this. And by the way, they're going to tell me something I haven't thought of. So the time commitment, while it looks daunting, when you go to your Outlook schedule and try to put a placeholder on there, in the grand scheme of things, the ROI is pretty quick and pretty huge.
I come from a different industry, and the peer group that you have surrounded myself with is from completely different industry.
Yeah.
They may not understand HPLC, that what I do, but they understand my problem. They understand my pain point. They understand my suffering. So what I would advise people considering is, like, they may not be from my industry. What am I going to get out of this? I would encourage them and I would challenge them to think outside the box. Because you want to surround yourself with people from different perspective, and the question they ask you with humility and the way they challenge you definitely gives different perspective in life. For me, I'm not only getting support for like how to run a successful business, I'm also getting a support from like how to be a successful individual. So once I am a successful individual, I can be a good leader, a good husband, a good father, and a good friend to the people I'm with. So for me, I really love how I am challenged. I really love how I am questioned about my decision making. And I really love how welcoming the team members are, and the amount of wisdom they share is something that you need to experience it.
I mean, first of all, I would say again, it doesn't hurt to give it a try. You know, it's not. There's really limited downside here to giving it a try, and when you do, you know, my experience so far is you actually have an opportunity to sort of shape and mold and kind of craft it to how you want it to be. Meaning, you know, you can work with your chair and the folks in your group to sort of influence the topics of interest for the group and the speakers that might come in. I mean, you can kind of shift this and direct it, you know, in a collaborative way with your Vistage group to make sure that you're getting out of it what you hope to get out of it. And but you can only do that if you're engaged, if you're present, if you're engaged, if you're willing to kind of proactively influence and help guide where the group goes into the future. But you do have that opportunity to not just be an innocent bystander, but to actually engage and make sure that you're getting out of it what you want to get out of it.
I would say come to a meeting.
Yeah.
You know, and audit the meeting, right? When you're in college, you went and audited a class. Audit the meeting. And I would say absolutely, I think, you know, and have some key points you want to take away from there. Or if you've got concerns, you know, Nicole will know what to hit and not hit while you're there.
No, that's great advice.
And again, I don't know what's customary or not customary, but, you know, reach out to a few people that are in the group or in another group or even in another, you know, somebody in Denver or San Francisco or whatever. You know, what I started finding, we're part of a larger private equity group. And as I started, you know, hey, I had a really great speaker at my Vistage meeting. Oh, you do Vistage? I've done Vistage for 13 years. I do it in Atlanta. I really liked it. The only reason I stopped was because, you know, I retired out of my, whatever the reason, but there's a lot, it's kind of like a cult is a really bad word, or it could be negative, but I mean it in the most positive sense, right? That there's more people doing it than you realize. And, you know, and to kind of put the dot on that I across the T, you know, as we talk about trying to recruit new members or just make our group stronger.
Absolutely. I would say to be open, to not don't isolate. I think for me, I was so focused on the business that I felt that every decision needed to be made by me. I had to read every book possible to find knowledge and wisdom to really make more effective decisions. But I found that isolating was a disadvantage. That did not serve me well. And just within the last couple of years, and I've been more open to looking for mentors or looking for business owners that are willing to have a coffee with me and just have conversation. Coming across someone like yourself that says, hey, I have this group that could be awesome for you. Here's a group of individuals that are like-minded. They're impact-driven individuals who are looking to also do the same things that you're wanting to do in your business. And just exposing yourself to resources, I think would be the best advice that I could give, is to not to isolate, to seek out peer groups, seek out opportunities, seek out networks, seek out mentors that are willing to feed into you to help you develop, hone your skills, and then not to be afraid of what you don't know. It's okay. It's okay not to know. I think it took me a while to get there, to be okay with not knowing. I thought that was, I don't know, not necessarily a sign of weakness by any means, but I didn't necessarily want to vocalize that I didn't know. And now I feel extremely comfortable. Hey guys, I need some help. I'm not sure. How would you handle this particular situation? And being open-minded and willing. So just be open and willing to seek out resources that can help you, and don't feel that isolation is the only way or the best way.
I would say that if they are thinking about it, I would say them be open, ask all the questions. And not only spending time with you as a Vistage chair, I would also encourage them to spend time with us.
Yes.
So that they can get the, perspective, instead of like, oh, this is what Nicole is saying, or Nicole is trying to sell me, rather than they can talk to us and understand, ask questions like, what are you really getting out of this?
Yeah.
Is this for real?
Yeah.
Whatever it is Nicole saying, I mean, all that glitters, is it really gold? I mean, it is, So I would encourage them to spend time one-on-one with the current members to get better perspective.
Thank you to my CEO members who took the time to share their experiences with you all. And I appreciate you taking the time to learn more about Vistage. I'd love to explore if one of my groups is a fit for you. So if you're curious or intrigued after this event today, send me a LinkedIn message and let's talk some more. And remember, who you surround yourself with matters.